Hi AP, welcome to your tutorial on using Collide 2D, which is a brand new library that we are linking in our sketch. I know that some of you have gotten to this sketch, you've duplicated it, and you are looking around wondering, what's new about this? Nothing looks different. Collide 2D is a JavaScript library, so it is actually linked in the HTML of your page. So if you click this little arrow open, you're going to see that you have an HTML and a CSS page. If you click into the HTML, it is at first going to look like every other P5 project. The P5 library is linked on lines 4 and 5. That's what these guys are. But if you scroll down, line 7 all the way down to line 17, that is all brand new. All of that is the Collide library, which is now linked and ready for us to use. If this is not pasted into your project, you will not be able to use the Collide library. In your asynchronous work and also in the Google Classroom under resources, I am linking a blank P5 project that has this library linked. If you'd like, we can also go over how to paste this into a project. It's really just copying and pasting for any time that you want to use Collide 2D, but it is important that you know it won't just work on its own. Your program needs to know that it has to access that information. Also, my cat is here. So we're going to go over this, and to help us out, I would recommend you look at the Collide 2D library reference page, which is linked in your asynchronous work. This is just a very long scrollable page, looks like this at the top. You don't need to click into anything, you just need to scroll. And it's very similar to the P5 reference page, where it tells you what are functions that they have written for you to use, and how are you supposed to use those functions. So there's some basic documentation. Probably the place you'll be living the most is this documentation table of contents where it has 2D collision detection. All of these are clickable and will take you to the right part of the page. And we're going to talk a little bit more about those once we start coding. So in this code, you can see that I have set up some shapes with some styles and some challenges for you to do. We are going to code one together, and then y'all are going to code the rest on your own. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play and take a look. The first shape that we are coding together, I'm sorry guys, my cat's really mad, I'm not giving him attention, is going to be this big circle at the top. And what I want to have happen is as soon as my mouse touches that circle, I want the circle to change color. So before we even talk Collide, I know that if something about this has to change, I'm going to need a variable to control that thing. So if I want the color to change, I'm going to need a variable to control the fill of my shape. And I'm talking colors, so like I have some, free reign to make this a more exciting shape. It just doesn't need to be white. I think I'm going to make it maybe magenta to yellow might be my color balance. So up at the top of my page, the first thing I need to do is make a variable. And for all of these things you guys are doing on your own, I would imagine that probably the first thing you'll do as well is make a variable for each one based on what it's controlling. So I'm going to make a global variable at the top of my page, meaning that I can use it anywhere. It is not made inside a function. And I'm going to just name this variable circ1 color, because that makes sense to me. I'm controlling the color of circle 1. Now once I've made my variable, it needs a starting value, and for us right now, a best practice is still to give those starting values in setup. Especially this year when we're going to be working with variables a lot, you guys are going to get a sense of when sometimes things can be declared at the top of the page or in draw, but declaring in setup isn't going to steer us wrong right now. So giving that variable a color looks like saying circ1 color equals, and then my first value. And if I was not doing a color, if I was doing something like a size or something like controlling stroke weight, I could just type a number and be done with it. But because I am dealing with a color, I need to type the word color, and then in parentheses, I need to give it the 3 numbers that represent that color. And remember, those 3 numbers represent the amount of red, of green, and of blue that are mixing in my color to make it look the way it does. There are lots of color pickers online that you guys can use. If you just Google color picker, it will bring it up to you. Whatever says RGB, those are the colors that you want to use. I happen to know some colors off the top of my head. I know that 255-0255 is magenta. So if I fill that in for circ1 color, and I go down and I fill that in to my fill here, so instead of a number it says circ1 color and hit play, my shape is now magenta, which is really pretty for me. So using that, I am now going to try and code this conditional statement that says, if my mouse is touching the ellipse, then let's make the ellipse change color, else let's make it go back to normal. Now, I've just done a lot. If anything in here you guys missed, feel free to go back, feel free to pause the video to catch up. The same goes as we start working into this conditional. If at any time you feel like I'm moving very quickly, please pause, please go back and watch again. That's what this is here for, and make sure you are definitely coding along as we go through this together. So underneath line 21, I'm going to start laying out my conditionals, and I'm just going to use a little bit of pseudocode to kind of hold the place of what I want to be there. So I'm going to say if mouse touches ellipse, this is not real code, as you can probably guess from like these squiggly lines appearing under it. The computer is not happy. This is just a placeholder for me. I know that my conditionals need a curly brace to start and a curly brace to end, so I'm going to drop those in. And then inside of there, I'll leave a comment that I want to change color of ellipse, and I can actually say change color of circ1 color, because that's my variable. Then I'm putting an else down here. I don't need an else if, because this is just if my mouse is anywhere but on that circle. I want to change color of circ1 color back to magenta. Alright, so now I think my first step is to figure out what goes inside this conditional. And the answer to that is in my collide library. Everything in this collide library is a Boolean statement that returns true or false from the function. So the first thing I need to do is look at all these options and decide which one I'm looking at. So I want the mouse to be touching a circle, and while I don't see anything that says mouse or cursor, I do see point a lot, and the mouse really is just a point. It has an X and a Y coordinate. So I think that I could probably use collide point ellipse. There's also collide point circle. These are very similar. I'm going to pick ellipse just to keep it consistent, but y'all are welcome to play with this. I'm going to choose collide point ellipse, and I see that they have some syntax for me right here, which I want to copy and paste. And then I also see that they have an example coded out. Now, this example involves like a lot of things happening. They're trying to make something that I think keeps track of things hitting and like does a lot of other stuff. I can look at this if I want, but this stuff in gray is really what I care about. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to head back to my code, and I'm going to get rid of this text and just paste in that whole thing that we just had. So this whole thing is my function. Let me actually move my text so it's a little easier to see. There we go. I want this to get all in one line. Alright, let me go back with this because I hit enter. Okay. So all of this stuff in here, this is my function from the collide library that is going to give the computer a true or false. And remember, in my conditionals, they just need to see true or false to work. So I'm going to plug in here, instead of point x, point y, ellipse x, ellipse y, ellipse width, ellipse height, those are all placeholders. I'm going to plug in the information about my specific scenario. So because the point I'm talking about is the mouse, I'm going to make this mouse x and mouse y, and it's already turning colors because the computer knows that those are variables that it understands. And then ellipse x is just the x position of my ellipse. So I see that that's 193. I see that ellipse y is 73. I see that the width is 100. And the height is also 100. So I'm going to plug in all those numbers. Then, in here, instead of having this code comment, I'm going to say circ1 color is now equal to a new color, and that color is 255, 255, 0. Now in my else, I'm going to change it back to magenta. So I'm going to get rid of that comment, and I'm going to write in, making sure I'm still between my curly braces. Remember, everything that goes with this conditional needs to be between these two brackets. Circ1 color equals color 255, 0, 255. So now, let me bring my canvas back, squish all my text. If I hit play, I have this pink ellipse, and once my mouse gets over it, it turns yellow. Once my mouse gets outside of it, it turns back to pink. I didn't have to do any of the math required. I just needed to call in the collide library to make this work. What's really happening here is the whole time I'm not on the not on the circle, this function is returning false, 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 false when I become over the circle, it returns true and it changes that color to yellow. Then it goes back to pink once it starts returning false again. You guys, for your task, are going to be trying to make all these different shapes turn, not necessarily colors, some of them will change sizes, so you'll need to make a variable for everything that's changing. Use the variable inside your sequence to draw that shape, and then write in a conditional using the correct function from the Collide library. There's also going to be a spicy challenge involving making two circles collide with each other. I will add that at the bottom. As always, if you guys have problems or you're feeling stuck, try using the Slack first. See if your classmates can help you out. If that's not working for you, come to office hours. I will definitely talk through this with you. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.